Paris, May 1925. In a luxury hotel suite, a man in a perfect suit slides a contract across the table and sells the Eiffel Tower for scrap metal. He doesn't own it. He doesn't work for the government. Even his name is fake. The buyer pays a fortune and tells no one, ever. So 1 month later, the man comes back to sell it again. The man in the suit called himself Count Victor Lustig. He wasn't a count. He was a boy from Bohemia who spoke 5 languages and had discovered early that people don't check a confident man. By 1925, he was in Paris, reading a newspaper over breakfast, when he found the idea of his life. A small article about the Eiffel Tower. It was rusting. Repairs were costing the city a fortune. And here's the part most people today don't know. The tower was never meant to be permanent. It was built in 1889 for a World's Fair, designed to stand for 20 years and then come down. Parisians had called it an eyesore for decades. Lustig read that article twice, set down his coffee, and saw what no one else in Paris saw. If the tower was always temporary, then someone, someday, would be allowed to sell it. Why not him? Why not now? What happened next was not luck. It was craftsmanship. Lustig had official government stationery forged, perfect paper, perfect seals. He gave himself a title, Deputy Director General of the Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs. Then he sent private letters to 5 of the biggest scrap metal dealers in France. Not an advertisement, an invitation, confidential. The 5 men arrived at the Hôtel de Crillon, one of the most expensive addresses in Paris, the kind of place where the doormen wear white gloves and ministers take their lunches. And that choice was deliberate. A liar meets you in an alley. The government meets you at the Crillon. They were led to a private suite. Lustig entered last, unhurried, apologetic about the secrecy. Carrying a leather folder of official documents he let them glimpse, but never quite read. Lustig told them the state had made a difficult decision. The tower was coming down. 7,000 tons of iron sold to the highest bidder. And then, the masterstroke of the whole setup, he told them it was secret. The public would be furious if the news leaked, so the deal had to stay quiet until signing. Read that move again. The secrecy wasn't hiding the con. The secrecy was the con. Because a buyer who can't talk to anyone can't check anything. He rented a limousine and drove the 5 dealers to the tower himself, chatting about iron prices and demolition schedules like a man discussing the weather. He walked them beneath the legs of the tower, tapping beams, pointing out rust, sighing at repair costs, a weary official doing inventory of his own property. The dealers measured, calculated, dreamed of the biggest contract of their lives. And the whole time, Lustig wasn't selling, he was choosing. Watching the 5 bidders, Lustig noticed one of them, a man named André Poisson, was different. Newer money, less established, hungry to prove he belonged in rooms like this. Lustig didn't pick the richest buyer. He picked the one with the most to prove, and the most to lose by looking foolish. Poisson had doubts. His wife had more. Who was this official nobody had heard of? Why the rush? Why the whispering? And notice what Poisson could not do about those doubts. He couldn't call the ministry. The deal was secret. He couldn't ask the other dealers. They were his rivals. He couldn't even ask a lawyer without breaking the confidentiality he'd agreed to. Every exit from the trap had been bricked up in advance, politely. So Lustig did something that should be studied forever. He confessed to a smaller crime. He took Poisson aside and admitted, embarrassed, that his government salary was thin, that men in his position arranging deals like this were sometimes taken care of. He asked for a bribe, and every doubt in Poisson's head died on the spot. Because con men don't ask for bribes, officials do. The corruption was the credential. Poisson paid the sale price and the bribe on top. handed over in a hotel suite to a man whose name, title, and ministry existed nowhere on earth except in that room. By some accounts, around 1,000,000 francs in total. The records are thin, which tells you something in itself. Lustig was on a train to Vienna within hours. First class, unhurried, a suitcase of cash in the rack above his head, and the newspaper he wasn't reading open in his lap. No running. Con men who run get remembered. Con men who stroll get forgotten. And then he opened the newspapers. Every day, waiting for the explosion. The headline: The Eiffel Tower Scandal. Nothing. Not a headline, not a police notice, not one word of gossip in a city that gossips about everything. Lustig checked the papers the way other men check the weather, and every silent morning told him the same impossible thing. Day after day, nothing at all. Because in a quiet office across Paris, André Poisson had done the math every scam victim does. Going to the police meant becoming the man who bought the Eiffel Tower, the laughingstock of Paris. His name, his business, his marriage, all of it filed under idiot forever. Staying silent cost him a fortune. Speaking cost him his pride. He chose the fortune. And here is where the story goes from clever to chilling. Because Lustig, reading those silent newspapers in Vienna, understood exactly what the silence meant. It meant the con still worked. And you already know what a man like Lustig does with a con that still works. 1 month later, same city, same hotel, same forged papers, same title, same speech about 7,000 tons of iron. 5 new scrap dealers, none of whom had heard a whisper of the first sale, because there had been no whisper. The legend says he sold the tower twice. The records say the second sale never finished, because this time, one buyer got suspicious and did the one thing Poisson couldn't. He talked. Maybe to a lawyer, maybe to a friend at the ministry. The record only says he checked. And the moment one phone call reached one real government desk, the answer came back instantly. There is no sale. There is no such official. The entire machine, the papers, the title, the crayon, all of it, collapsed in a single day. Lustig fled France with the money from sale number 1 and never came back. One man stayed silent, and the con ran twice. One man spoke, and it died in an afternoon. So what was Victor Lustig actually selling? Not a tower. He was selling a trap made of shame, a deal designed so that checking it felt rude and reporting it felt like social suicide. The Eiffel Tower was just the bait. And that trap did not retire in 1925. Every romance scam, every fake investment, every gift card call to a grandmother ends the way Poisson's story ended. A victim doing silent math. If I tell anyone, I become the fool. Most scams are never reported at all. The silence isn't a side effect. The silence is the product. So take the one move that killed the second sale. If you're ever conned, speak that same day, one person, out loud. And if anyone ever offers you a deal wrapped in "don't tell anyone yet," they're reading from Lustig's script. Secrecy is the con's oxygen. Ask in daylight and watch it suffocate. Lustig's story ends in America. He built a counterfeiting operation so large it worried the government, flooding the country with fake bills. When they finally caught him in 1935, he was locked in a supposedly escape-proof federal jail in New York. And days before his trial, he climbed out a window on a rope of knotted bedsheets in broad daylight, pretending to be a window washer, calmly wiping the glass on his way down while people on the street watched. They caught him again a month later. This time they sent him somewhere no bedsheet could solve: Alcatraz. He died there, quietly, in 1947, the greatest showman in crime, gone without an audience. The story goes that on his death certificate, under occupation, someone wrote, "Apprentice Salesman." The tower he sold is still standing. You can visit it tonight. And somewhere, right now, someone is being sold their own Eiffel Tower. A deal too confidential to question, from a man too confident to doubt. Don't be the buyer who pays, but whatever you do, don't be the one who stays quiet.